What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Fantasy Puck video. Today's video is going to be my own personal top 20 rankings, and I'm going to do my best to put them in their own tiers, S tier to D tier. Now, with the top 20 ranking, not many players are going to be in the D tier, if any. As we go through this, we're going to kind of decide. These are my own personal rankings, nothing through ESPN or Yahoo. It's a little bit too early in the preseason to actually have the ADP numbers right now. In terms of scoring for these leagues, it's going to be basic Yahoo scoring minus or without plus minus. And in place of that, we're going to put hits as a 0.9 stat. Refer to the comment section below for that scoring structure. And let's jump into the video. So Chris is going to actually be doing his own rankings. So we're going to kind of see what the differentiators are between our two rankings. He's a Leafs fan, so I already know that Mitch Marner is going to be there. And as you can see in the players below here, I don't have Mitch Marner in my top 20. Reason being is he just doesn't hit enough to actually make it into these rankings. And same thing with goals and shots. I think with the Yahoo default scoring, goal scoring is always going to be favorable in the leagues. And as I'm looking through our projections, which I have up on my left monitor right now, there are some players like Brady Tkachuk who may end the season as one of the top scorers. But I think for fantasy purposes and just upside, he may not make it into that S tier. So let's get started. The first player, very obvious, Mr. Connor McDavid with this beautiful headshot here. Will be going right into the S tier. I think McDavid could actually go into his own tier, the God tier. You know, I've had some discussions with some managers and some other league owners on the leagues that I'm in. I'm in a couple $100 buy-in keeper leagues, and we've talked about whether McDavid should even be allowed to be kept anymore. I'm in leagues where you keep players forever, and the guy who had first overall pick a couple of years ago or when the league started was able to get McDavid, and now he's putting up 1.5 times more points than some of the other players. So McDavid, obviously an S tier player, had an unbelievable 150 point campaign last year. We haven't projected this season for 144 points, 60 points on the power play, which honestly could be under projecting him right now. But it's hard to give someone over 150 points when he's only done it in one season. But Connor McDavid, the clear number 1 pick in all fantasy leagues, no matter what league you're in. Even in bangers, his points just separate him from every other player in the league. Moving on, number 2. I wonder who you guys think is going to be number 2, but he was my consensus number 2 last year, and he is going to be this year. Leon Draisaitl, teammates of Connor McDavid, sometime line mates, definitely line mates on that top power play unit, which I think is what separates Leon from the other two players that are going to end up here in the S tier, is that his power play point upside is just way too high. And a lot of these leagues that have power play points is such a niche stat because only so many players can actually get power play points, that Leon just separates himself from the bunch. So I like Leon here a lot as pick 2. In a couple of my leagues last year, I was able to get him pick 3 and pick 4. He was my consensus number 2 pick last year just because of those power play points. We have him projected this season for 51 goals, 119 points, 52 power play points, and 250 shots. Leon's going to have a big season. This Edmonton offense is starting to shape up a lot this year. So I like the way Leon looks going into this season, and he is my consensus number 2 pick overall. Number 3. Do you think it's going to be McKinnon or Matthews? I'm curious. Where is he? Austin Matthews, number 3. I am not a Leafs fan. Charlton or Chris is, so he's going to have him maybe as his number 1. But I like Matthews a lot as pick 3. I think you're not getting him on sale this year, but he may end up falling to 5 or 6 this year just because of the down year he had in 22 and the up year that a lot of other players had, like Pasternak and McKinnon. I think Matthews' shot volume just can't really be ignored. It's so high. We have him projected for 327 shots, not to mention the huge goal upside. I think he still has 60 goals left in his career, another 60-goal season. Maybe it'll be this year, but this Toronto offense is very good. This team is a top 5 team in the NHL. Matthews is going to thrive again in this offense if he stays healthy. I like him as the consensus number 3 pick going into the season. Number 4, the last player to end off the S tier is Nathan MacKinnon. I think the three players between Leon, Matthews, and MacKinnon are all interchangeable. Each of them have their own underlying stat that really separates themselves from each other. So the first is Leon's power play points is top 2 in the league, 52 power play point projection, where we have Matthews at 28 and MacKinnon at 32. Matthews' separator is his goal upside, someone that can easily score 60 goals in a season or 50 plus. And then MacKinnon's upside is that he has arguably the best shot volume in the entire NHL. So MacKinnon's floor is extremely high, but his ceiling may not be as high as the other players. He was on pace for a really, really good season last year. The only issue with me taking him in the top 3 pick is that he really hasn't played a full season in so long. And we have him projected playing 68 games this season. So missing about 14 games, which is pretty significant for a guy who puts up 15 fantasy points per game. If you're going to be missing that going into the season, it may hurt your season. But he's always good for a playoff run, especially late in the year. And the Colorado Avalanche aren't really getting any worse as a team. So I really like MacKinnon here in the S tier. So moving over to the A tier, the 60 goal scorer from last season. Someone, if you watched my draft strategy video, that I was saying, please take him in the second round. His ADP last year was unbelievable at 18 to like that 22 range. I managed to get him in the second round in 3 of my leagues. And now one of those keeper leagues, I have Leon and then Pastrnak. It was the one I actually did with all the viewers last year, and I ended up winning the league. Pastrnak right now is easily an A tier player, even with Krejci, Hall, Foligno, and of course Patrice Bergeron not on the Bruins this year. I think a lot of people are sleeping on the Bruins this year, and Pastrnak is in for another very strong season where he is the focal point of that offense. I don't think 60 goals are in store for him this year. I can see 50, but his elite shot rate, we have him projected for 344 shots this season, and that power play is really good. So I don't know how it's going to shape up without Bergeron there, but 31 power play points, 47 goals, 92 points. I really like Pastrnak. I don't think he's an S tier player in fantasy just yet, but he definitely finds his way as my 5th best player this season and in the A tier. Moving on, another Colorado Avalanche player, Mikko Rantanen. What a season last year. I didn't even know he was that good of a goal scorer, let alone 55 goals. What a year out of Mikko Rantanen. He was moved up into the 6th spot. Last year, I was looking at my rankings. I had him ranked 8th. So just a slight move, but from 8 to 6, that's good enough when you're at the very, very top of the NHL. Rantanen this season, we have him projected for 48 goals, 104 points, and 288 shots. He's a power play specialist. He's going to get time with MacKinnon. We don't really know what's going to happen with Landeskog this season, but I do think that's a good thing for Rantanen, just adding another skilled forward that defense are going to be focusing on. And we know that MacKinnon, Rantanen, Landeskog trio is very good 5-on-5, and Landeskog's also a power play threat. So I love Rantanen going into this season. I think he's a very safe pick. If you can get him after pick 6, you really can't go wrong. Moving on, the next A-tier player and the final Colorado Avalanche in this top 10 or top 20 is Cale Makar. I think you're getting Makar on sale this year. I was looking at the ESPN ADP, and he was going in the early second round. Makar really just shouldn't be a second round player. He is forward playing defense, and defense is always a scarce position. You're always finding that some of your defensemen are underperforming. It really is contingent on league settings with defensemen sometimes. If they value hits or blocks, then D will be better. But I think just in a general league like a standard Yahoo fantasy, it really favors defensemen that score goals and defensemen that get put up points. And that's what you're getting out of Cale Makar this season. So we have him projected for 67 games. So similar to MacKinnon, where he just hasn't stayed healthy. But when healthy, he is a 20 goal scorer, 75 plus points, a very good power play threat with 30 plus power play points. He has very, very big upside. Cale Makar could easily be a 100-point defenseman and add 250 shots into the mix and 40 power play points. He will find himself in the top 10 and obviously the rank 1 defenseman. Moving on to number 8, Kirill Kaprizov. Now, this may be a surprise, but this year. I think he is a 100+ point player and 40+ goals. I also like the rising star in Matt Boldy on that team, where he adds another offensive touch that isn't Kirill Kaprizov, but he's the focal point of this offense. Everything runs through him. He's going to be playing big minutes this year. He has very high shot volume upside, and we have him projected for 46 goals, 95 points, 285 shots. I think Kaprizov this year could definitely break the 100-point mark, and he is my consensus number 8 pick going into this year at the A tier. Moving on, we are jumping now down to the B tier. Jack Hughes. You guys know how much I liked Hughes last year if you followed the channel. I'm so happy that a lot of you guys ended up drafting him. He won me leagues. He was one of our league winners. He was my favorite center. He was my favorite sleeper. Everything about Jack Hughes last year. I hope that it was enough to convince you to draft him. 99 points on this unbelievable Devils team. Now, the Devils in the offseason, what did they do? They signed Timo Meier, a 70+ point player, maybe 80+ point player, and Tyler Toffoli, who had a career year last year in Calgary. I really like the additions they made to the offense, to the team. The reason why Hughes is in the B tier, now, not everyone's going to be an S and A tier. These are all, very elite players in the league and could all end up as a top 5 player in fantasy. But with Hughes is we've only really seen one big season out of him. He definitely has the upside to continue to do so for years to come, but the sample size just hasn't been there yet for me. So I think Hughes will fall into the B tier with obviously opportunity to end in the S or A tier. Next up, you may be surprised at this, and I'm seeing Kucherov fall in drafts right now for whatever reason, but Kucherov is my B tier player in my top 20 rankings as ranked 10. I really like Kucherov. He is one of the highest point upside players in the league. I think he has a higher point upside than every other player other than the first 2 players I mentioned. I just don't know what we're going to get out of this Tampa Bay team. I think there are a lot of question marks, and a lot of people are also thinking that. Hedman's not in that power play one anymore. We're going to see Sergachev there, which is going to be a big change to that team. But I really like Kucherov. He doesn't really hit a whole lot, and he doesn't really get many penalty minutes if you're counting that stat. And also the goal upside just isn't there. 40+ goals, I don't think is in the realm of possibilities for him. But we have him projected for 111 points this year and almost 50 power play points, 49 power play points, 260 shots. He falls perfectly in that top 10. If he's falling in drafts beyond 10, I think you're crazy not to draft him just because of the floor you get with him. And Point is a 50 goal scorer, Stammer 40+ goal scorer. That team is still really strong. The division is very difficult, but I really like Kucherov here at pick 10. Moving on, number 11, I have in brackets Matthew Tkachuk, in brackets injury. We really don't know if he's going to be healthy this season, and we really don't know the impact of his injury to his play going into this year. But the Panthers have one of the most dynamic offenses in all of hockey. They get pucks to net almost more than any other team other than the Devils. They're a really elite team offensively, and all their puck-moving defensemen kind of help that out. Matt Tkachuk here, he is the focal point of their entire offense. You saw in playoffs last year just how dominant he was. He also has decent hits upside. We project him for over 100 hits this season. He'll get you PIMs, he'll get you shots, he'll get you goals, power play, everything. He is not really an injury-prone player. In terms of the top players on our list right now, he is one of the highest projected games played for us at 80.88, so about 81 games played. So really high floor there. You're going to get him for the entire season. And at pick 11, you really can't go wrong with his upside. Moving on, another player in our B tier and rank 12 is Jason Robertson, J-Rob. What a job this Dallas Stars team has had. I honestly feel like every year they're like extremely good value to win the playoffs. They just have all the pieces to the puzzle. They have an elite goaltender. They have a number 1 star defenseman. And now they have Jason Robertson, who is an elite goal scorer, a power play threat, a first line player. You're going to get big minutes from J-Rob. This Dallas team is extremely good. J-Rob this season We have him projected for 45 goals, 101 points, which is actually lower than his point total last year. And he's getting older. I think J-Rob could actually end as a top 6 player, top 7 player, maybe behind Pastrnak or Rantanen. And he probably will end up in the A tier next year. But I really, really like J-Rob going into this season. At pick 12, he's very, very good value. Now, you're all probably wondering where my boy comes in. I want to put him here because he is. But Brady Tkachuk, I'm going to put him in the A tier. I decided this right now just because of how good his value is. I don't know where he's being drafted right now. The ADPs really aren't set yet, but I am seeing him going again still in the second round. I saw something on Twitter that said the days of drafting Brady Tkachuk in the second round are over. I think this year we still may be able to sneak him out in the second round. He is actually my second highest projected point total player in for fantasy scoring in the Yahoo default leagues. We have him projected playing 81 games this season, similar to his brother, just doesn't really get injured, even though he plays a really gritty style of hockey. 37 goals, 84 points, 320 shots, 284 hits. He has the highest floor of any player in the entire NHL. He is an extremely strong player offensively. This team is getting very good. Even with DeBrincat leaving, he only had 27 goals last year. I still think this Ottawa offense is very strong. A lot of young superstars in the making with Tim Stützle. We might see the breakout of Shane Pinto this year. Josh Norris is back. Someone I like a lot is Jake Sanderson this year. So I think Brady Tkachuk, easily an A-tier player, very high floor, very high ceiling. He could end up as our number 1 player. Moving on to our next player, it's going to be a goaltender. The first goaltender to make this list at pick number 14, Igor Shesterkin, falls into the B tier in the top 20 players list. I don't like taking goalies in the first round. That's part of my draft strategy. Never take goalies early. Igor was a top 10 pick last season because of how good he was in 2021-22 season. I like him a little bit more this year because he's starting to fall a little bit in drafts. I still can't justify drafting a goalie in the second round, but for those in roto leagues with goals against average and save percentage, Igor can win you weeks just by himself. If he gets 3 starts in the week, he can end up with a 930 save percentage and a 230 goals against average that your opponent just can't match. I think if there's one player that can really win you a week by himself, it's Igor Shesterkin and Andrei Vasilevskiy. Those are the 2 goaltenders just with their goals against average and save percentage upside, and they're both on very good teams. Igor on the Rangers, they should have a 60+% win percentage this season, and we should see 60+ starts for Igor. If I do the quick math in my head, that's about 35 wins to safely project him for. He's our projected number 1 goaltender off the board, and at number 14, I think it's fine to take him there. Now, our C tier, the first player, Tage Thompson of the Buffalo Sabres. I'm sorry, Sabres fans. Don't get mad that he's in the C tier. Just remember he's in the C tier with the players you see on the screen. Tage Thompson kind of slowed down a little bit in the second half last year. I know really early on, people were giving him comparisons to Connor McDavid, or should I trade Tage Thompson for McDavid? Should I trade McDavid for Tage Thompson? Honestly, Tage was a beast to begin the year. He felt like he was scoring every night. And when he did, it was always like a multi-goal game, a 2, 3, 4-goal game. We have Tage Thompson this year projected for 48 goals, 91 points, 277 shots, which I think may actually be a little bit of a higher projection for him. I don't know what we're going to see out of the Sabres team. They're kind of a wild card team, but they're in that really difficult division, so their matchups are going to be pretty hard. They don't play very good defense, so they do spend a lot of time in the defensive zone. But when they're attacking very often and very well. So Tage Thompson here, the sample size just isn't enough to make him a B tier player just yet, but he did fall into my top 20 players at pick 15. Pick 16 in the C tier, Andrei Vasilevskiy. Similar talk to what I said with Shesterkin. I don't want to repeat myself. I don't like taking goalies this early. But Vasilevskiy is always a very safe pick. He doesn't really get injured very often. He plays 60+ games per season. This Tampa Bay team is very competitive, very strong team. They should have, similar to the Rangers, with a 55% win percentage. and 60 plus starts for Vasilevsky. Again, if you're in those roto leagues, he is almost a must draft in the second round just because he can win you the week with his goals against average, save percentage, and a couple wins. Moving on, some people may be surprised, and some of those Vancouver Canucks fans are ripping their hair out right now saying, when is Pettersson going to make it onto this list? But he is in the C tier at pick 17. I know Chris likes Pettersson a little bit more than me. I know if you saw those early ESPN rankings, they had him pick number 3, which is a little bit actually way too early for Pettersson. I like him here at pick 17. We have him projected for 40 goals, 54 assists, and 94 points. He had a very, very good season last year with the Canucks, better than most people thought out of Pettersson. This team just doesn't really know if they want to tank or if they want to tank and rebuild or if they want to make a cup run. They just make these really oddball trades, especially getting Hronek last year didn't really make much sense. But I think some players on this team are due for a bounce back, and hopefully Pettersson could take advantage of that. So I like Pettersson here at pick 17. I think there's a little bit of risk because we don't really know what's going to happen with the Vancouver Canucks. And also I think that Pettersson kind of had an oddball year last year where his shooting percentage was a little bit higher than usual. But that power play was strong. And his shot volume was actually up last year compared to his career averages. Moving on, we are still going to stay in the C tier. I honestly don't think anyone deserves the D tier. Roman Josi of the Nashville Predators. I love taking elite defensemen early, especially elite defensemen with very, very high floor. So we have Josi projected for 256 shots, 56 shots higher than Cale Makar. On top of that, 71 points, 28 points on the power play, 133 blocks and 250 shots. Very, very high floor for Roman Josi. Someone that you can take and just leave in your lineup and not have to worry about, because every night he's just going to be producing points, whether it's on the score sheet, whether it's getting you 5 shots, whether it's giving you 3 blocks. Josi just pretty much does it all, and you can't go wrong taking him and pairing him with one of your elite forwards in your early picks. Moving on, I can't believe Ovi is where he is right now, but he's a little bit later in his career, and Sid's not even in my top 20, which I maybe have to reevaluate, but he would definitely be an honorable mention on this list. Alex Ovechkin here in the C tier, and the reason why Ovi is here is because of that elite shot and hit volume, 150 plus hits, over 300 shots, and 44 goals. So if you're in a league that values goals, values shots and hits, like this scoring does for this video, Alex Ovechkin is definitely going to be someone you want on your radar. I pick 18. He's an easy pair with some of these early players, especially if you go and get someone like Kirill Kaprizov in the first round. You can match him with his Russian counterpart in Alex Ovechkin and have that high point upside while still getting those hits that Kaprizov may lack. So I like over here quite a bit. He's starting to fall a little bit more than I want him to, but there was some injury last season. He is getting a little bit older, and this Washington team just isn't getting much better. To round out this list, my boy, Mika Zibanejad in the C tier. A very, very good player on a very strong Rangers team. He had a strong bounce back season last year after potting 44 goals in like 59 games a couple of years ago. Hopefully my math is correct. I've been a Mika owner in my keeper league for 4 years now. It's probably going to be another year with him. He's been very good for me. Going into the season, we have him projected for 38 goals, 87 points, 240 shots on net. We all know that Rangers power play is one of the best in the league with Artemi Panarin there and Adam Fox, who are 2 elite high upside players that are also close to being honorable mentions on this list. I love Zip going into this season. I think he's a very, very good player on a very strong team, and he doesn't really have much injury downside, with him projected as the highest games played player at 81.63 games played, which means he'll get hurt 63% into one of his games this season based on our projections. But that rounds out my top 20 players list and the tiers. Kind of a longer video, but if you guys enjoyed this style of video, we're going to be coming out with our center rankings, our winger rankings, defensemen, and goaltending, as well as Chris's top 20 players. So you'll hear his own analysis, his own takes on some of these players. Let me know in the comment section below some players that you think should belong in different tiers or even belong in this video in general. There are a few honorable mentions: Barkov, Marner, Crosby, and Adam Fox that could all have made into this video. Thank you for watching, guys. I look forward to seeing everyone in the next video.